All right, with the time being 6 o'clock, I'd like to call this Board of Health meeting to order. All members are present, as well as our acting health agent, Chris Schultz. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you all please remain standing and join me in a moment of silence for Caitlin McCarthy, who had passed this weekend in a tragic accident. Thank you. All right. First item on our agenda is public announcements. Announcements from the Health Department. Chris, let me turn that over to you.
Nothing really exciting to report today. I'll just give you an update on our current numbers with the caveat that this information is fairly useless because it only is proctored tests reported through Maven. As of this afternoon, Abington had 71 active cases, and our test positivity rate as of last Wednesday was up to 7.08%. So we are still trending in the wrong direction. That's all I have for an update.
Has there been any recent, data from the NWRA as far as the sewer data that usually is pretty good about predicting?
The wastewater, I didn't get a chance to check that today. I know last time I checked that had been going up.
Okay.
The general prevailing wisdom had been to keep an eye on South Africa and Europe because they're generally a few weeks ahead of us, and
right.
Things are going sideways over there. So,
if I'm not mistaken, the European CDC just announced a new variant of concern as well. Omicron, 2 new variants of concern. Yeah. So I know they've been like a canary in the coal mine sort of thing. So
yeah,
things to keep in mind.
So as always, and I know it's people are tired of hearing it, but masks, wash your hands, practice social distancing as much as possible. For the love of God, if you don't feel good, if you think you have allergies or sniffles, stay home. And any of our residents, if you need test kits, please come see us. I had a guy today who's spent a couple $100 on test kits because he's got 6 kids. We have like 5,000 of them.
Wow.
So please don't hesitate to stop in at Town Hall and visit us in the health department. We have test kits.
I mean, the good news is that we have them because last time we kind of got them at the end of the cycle. So we do have, plenty that were, given us from the federal government previously. So
yeah, and I should mention for anybody that has test kits that they got from us earlier, the iHealth were set to expire the end of June. The FDA extended that to September 27th. So the ones we're giving out have been labeled as such, but the older ones, they're still good. They just say they're not, or won't be soon.
Any other questions from the board for the health department? Hearing none, we can move on to the next agenda item, the first one of our discussion action items, which is operating without a permit. Chris is going to give us a little bit of background on that, and then we can open it up for discussion for the board.
So I thought this might be worth having the board think about. So the way it works with the health department versus the Board of Health is the Board of Health, you guys are a regulatory board, you set the regulations in the town, and then the health department and its agent enforce them. So we have a fee schedule for all of our permitting. Right now, the way, and I'm going to just focus on food establishments. So food establishment permits all expire December 31st. And they have to, by state regulation, you have to have your application in for renewal 30 days prior. The town of Abington sets a penalty fee for anyone that does not get their application in 30 days in advance of double the price of the fee. So for a regular retail food establishment, it's $200 for a permit, so it would be $400 if they miss the 30-day mark. Looking around at other towns in our immediate area, both Marshfield and Whitman charge 50% of the original fee. Rockland and Weymouth, it's a $25. Braintree is $50. Stoughton has a $50 fee, and then it doubles after 14 days. This past year, we had a lot of businesses that were late after the 30-day. We kind of let that slide because of we used to do a mailing. We'd send out a letter to them at the beginning of November reminding them that their permits were up. We didn't do that this past year. So I know that reminder is helpful to people, and I'll mention this now because I'm going to bring it up again in a moment. However, if you're a business owner and you operate a restaurant, you know the law, you know the rules. You have to do this every year. So it's sort of a balancing act. What we don't currently have in place is a penalty or a fee for anyone operating unpermitted. Now, for restaurants, I can tell you personally, if they didn't get their permit within that 30-day, if we were coming up on January 1st and they didn't get a permit in, I made phone calls. Or I actually went out to the establishment with an application and said, you need to get this in or you're getting shut down January 1st. And everybody was in compliance. The problem we occasionally run into is mobile food establishments or food trucks. We have a number of events in town that welcome food trucks. I love food trucks. I'm more than happy to have them. They're an easy permitting process. But we've had a number of times where a food truck has operated in Abington without a permit. It's sort of unfair to all the other operators that have to pay their $125 fee. It means that there's an uninspected vehicle serving food in our town, which puts people at risk. And as I said with the restaurants, if you operate a food truck, your livelihood is a food truck. You know you have to be permitted in every town you operate. There is really no excuse for not calling the health department in the town you're going to be in and asking for a permit process and getting that done. So I kind of asking the board if maybe you guys want to think about putting a fee in place, because right now the only recourse to me if I find an unpermitted truck is 9 out of 10 times I find out about it after the fact. I'm a town employee. I work Monday through Friday. A lot of food truck events are Friday night or Saturdays. Even though I'm on call, I might not find out about it until Monday morning. The truck's already gone. My only recourse at this time is to deny them a permit in the future, which means they can't do business in our town. And I don't think that's helpful to the town or to the drivers. So I looked around at all the surrounding communities, and only 2, Weymouth and Hanover, had listed on their sites fees for operating without a permit, and both of them were double the permit fee. So, for example, a food truck, an annual permit for them is $125, so we would fine them $250 if they operated in town without a permit.
Is there a one-time fee?
There is. So it's one time is $50. Usually if they call and ask, I recommend that they get a seasonal, which is $75, because that allows them more than one event. You know, they might come and do an event at the brewery and decide, hey, this is cool, I'd like to do it again. I'd hate to have them spend another $50 when they could spend 25 more and be okay for 6 months.
So what is, I thought you said 125.
125 is annual, 75 is seasonal, which would be a 6 month, and then it's 50 for one day, one event. That's the current structure, which was set by the board.
And is the 75 and 125 typical of other towns?
Yeah, we're fairly consistent across the boards.
Yeah. We did review the fee schedule last
About a month ago.
Yeah,
I think we approved it March 1st. So
yeah, we approved it, and we were kind of in line with all our fees.
Yeah, we looked at about, I think, all 5 surrounding communities and a few a little further out, but we're just about in line and everything. I think that was the report we got from the health department.
Yeah, the only thing that really differed was a lot of towns with food establishments will charge different prices based on seating, but it ended up averaging out about the same with ours, where I think ours is just like $200 for retail, and it might be $150 for other food establishments.
So a regular restaurant is $200 a year, and a food truck is $125 a year.
$125 a year, yeah. Sorry,
is the permitting per town, like, so that I have to pay for Abington, pay for Weymouth, pay for, so each town separately?
Yeah, which is, I think, one of the mindsets behind having a lower fee. The other one is so the fees that we establish for permits are only supposed to cover the cost of issuing that permit. So for example, if we decided to charge $500 for a permit because we didn't want food trucks coming in, which this is not the case, but that's not in the spirit of the regulation. It's supposed to cover the costs of having me go out and do the inspection, the paperwork that the town has to do to process.
So 125 is reasonable?
It seems reasonable, and that is in line with what everybody else is charging.
All right, it seems high to me, that's why.
Yeah, like
But
then
if
I think
that's what
like so
everybody's charging.
50 for a one-day event. If you come in, I mean, I don't know what the overhead on a food truck is, but they're probably not making more than $1,000, $2,000 on one event. So $50 seems good. $125 if they're operating, you know, like at the food truck rodeo, if they're here every weekend or something, you know, it's probably worthwhile for them. I don't know. I don't operate the trucks, but that is pretty much what.
Well, they're not
is.
coming back, so it wasn't worth it for them last year, was it?
Yeah, I think that was more the association.
All right.
So that's all. I mean, nothing. I don't have any recourse if somebody's unpermitted other than denying them a permit in the future, which I feel is a little heavy-handed.
Yeah. I'm opening up for discussion, so if we want to just
I
flow
think,
it
and just for background for the board, when we did look at them, we didn't change any of the fees. I think we only went down on one fee, which was the
House of Worship.
The House of Worship fee was
And
the only one that.
and we created a fee for.
Guest practitioners for body art.
No, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Packaged goods only,
Right.
retail packaged goods.
Which we lowered.
Correct. So,
Right.
so we try to remain everything else consistent because it's consistent. And I think to your point, annual makes sense in terms of the fee number if you're looking at them doing multiple events over the course of a year in comparison to $50 for one event.
Which is why I encourage them to get a seasonal instead of a one-time. Not that I'm trying to get them for more money, but if they decide they want to come back, you know.
Chris, what's the inspection process for mobile trucks? Do they just, you know, how do you inspect them? I know like a lot of them, like you said, happen on weekends when you're not. Do they come by and you look at their operation? Or?
Yeah, and this is another other point of contention with food trucks. So to get a food permit in Abington, whether you're a stable establishment or you're a mobile, it's supposed to be 30 days in advance. So they're supposed to apply for a permit. They have to send in their paperwork, which includes their food manager protection certification, their allergen awareness, and then they set a date to inspect the truck. They bring the truck here, they fire everything up, and I do a regular food establishment inspection. It's quick because it's a food truck, so it's, you know, there's not a lot to see. And then they get a permit for whatever amount of time they're asking to be permitted. So if they get a seasonal or an annual, then if they're planning on coming back next year, they have to reapply and they get inspected again.
Okay, right. Okay.
So is if they pay the 50, can they just pay the balance due if they decide to come back?
They'd have to pay another 50 for a,
Another 50.
yeah. Or
They
at that
couldn't
time
just-
they could do a seasonal. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it would be a
So-
separate.
Could they give you $75 more and get the seasonal once they've already gotten a one-time?
If they applied for a one-time and were issued a part-time, it would be the full fee for whatever they wanted next.
Again.
Because it would be a new permit.
Regardless of the 50.
Yeah.
Does
Just
everybody like that?
Might make sense to credit it towards
I
a
feel like it
seasonal.
should be credited.
Yeah, I mean,
So too.
my only caveat with that is a one-day permit is a one-day permit. It is for that day, it expires that day. So if you're crediting towards another, you know, that's a fee for a separate permit.
Do you-
I understand the thought process.
Do you inspect them for a one-day?
Yeah, if they're gonna come in and operate in Abington and they haven't been here before, they're getting inspected.
So the inspection is the same whether it's one day or seasonal
Yeah.
or annual?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to make that a policy that we credit them if they pay for
The
a
credit
one
would
day
make sense to
and
me.
decide to come.
Well, would it
Extended.
matter in terms of, are you required to re-inspect them if you issue any permit at this time though?
If it's with,
So if you, like, if we were to credit it so that they only had to pay an extra 25, do you still have to go out and inspect them?
no.
No.
So the same work has already been done.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
I feel like food trucks aren't always the gold mine that people think they are, and that we
Yes.
shouldn't squeeze them if there's an opportunity not to.
Well, how often are we having people do a one-day permit and then turning it into, like, paying the two fees?
In the time that I've been issuing permits, I maybe had one time. Because again, I usually talk them out of it. Try to get them to do the seasonal so they can come back and not have to go through that. Most of them are annual.
I would make a motion that the policy be to credit them their one day $50 toward annual or seasonal if they change their minds.
I have a motion on the floor to credit mobile food establishments looking to get a seasonal or annual permit from a one-day event. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second that.
A second from Katie. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. So that passes. If we can adjust the fee schedule for that, Chris, that'd be great.
I had another question too, just because I was wondering, is the application process available online, or is it something they have to mail in?
Yes and no. So the permit is available online. They can download that.
Oh,
They can scan it along with their documents and send it to me. As of this moment, they have to bring a check in or mail it, and that's a physical process. We are in the process of creating online permitting for the health department. So once that's up and set, other than the physical inspection, it would all be online.
good.
Chris, you did mention about how like the penalty was 100%, which did seem that we were kind of a little bit out of the norm for the other communities. Is that something that you think we need to address?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that a state regulation that we have to fine double for late? Is that what we're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I would presume it's not because other towns aren't doing that.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, if we could look into it, we had a board meeting probably 3 years ago now where this was a discussion that it was stated by the previous health agent that was a state law.
Okay.
So I would review that before we consider
It has to be
speeding.
double. Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure we had a
Yeah.
resident come and ask about that. So if we could review that.
State law would supersede.
Yeah, exactly. As it stands, though, we're looking at operating without a permit. I don't know if we have any action or further discussion on the matter from the board.
I would be inclined to cut them some slack the first time, just based on my earlier question about if they have to permit per town. Like if they're hopping all over the place, it might be challenging for them to keep everything organized. Of course, I'd like them to, but I think second offense for sure they should be fined, because I want the residents of Abington to be safe, and I want to make sure that they're inspected. And I think second time around, I wouldn't want to take any risks.
I'll second that. Is that a motion?
It can be, yes.
I'll second that.
So it is a motion?
I
Okay.
make a motion for the initial offense to not have a fine, but if there's a second offense, then I think that we should fine the food truck, because I think it's extremely important that they get inspected.
So I have a motion from Katie to not fine operating without a permit for mobile food establishments the first time, but fine the second time. And I have a second from Lisa on that. Do I have further discussion from the board?
I do have one question. So because currently what you do is you make them get a permit in arrears for basically, that's what you do currently, correct, Chris? Like if a food truck comes in, they're not permitted, and then you find out about it or whatever, then you make them, basically get a permit for the event that already happened, correct?
No.
No? All right.
I just letting them know they're not coming in back into Abington unless they get a permit.
Okay. All right, so essentially that's what we do, yeah.
I'm sorry, if they've applied for the permit but haven't gotten it yet and an event comes up, does that count? That seems like if they've applied, it shouldn't be a finable offense if they haven't received it yet.
That hasn't happened. The only way that would happen is if we were unable to inspect them. I certainly, if I was unable to inspect them before the event, I wouldn't hold anybody to that. If they failed to show up or schedule an inspection, then I would fine them.
Is there a time frame for inspection?
And that's the thing. That's the other frustration. It's 30 days prior. All right, to set the inspection from the time that they get the application in, I think they have 14 days, 14 business days. But they have to apply for an application 30 days prior to the event. And I believe that may be state law. I'd have to check it, but that's consistent across all towns.
My point in contention of not finding on the first offense, if I'm not mistaken, we have the few times that there have been unpermitted food trucks, they've operated at the same location. multiple times, meaning it's multiple food trucks that are operating unpermitted at the same location. So that location, that business in particular, was allowing them to come unpermitted multiple times.
Yeah, it's a question of
So we're going to let
due
multiple
diligence.
get away the first time.
Right.
Doesn't make sense to me.
So is it on the business, like say a liquor store has a food truck, is it up to the liquor store to make sure they have a permit?
Or whoever was organizing whatever event was happening. It's not always at a business.
I mean, it's up to the person that runs the mobile food establishment to make sure they're permitted to operate, but at the same time, the person running an event should also ensure that they should be permitted.
I guess it depends. Like, so in the case of a liquor store, so a liquor store has to apply for an annual permit themselves, so they're familiar with the process. But if I decided to call an ice cream truck and hire them to come to my kid's birthday party, I might not know there's a permitting process, and I think as a consumer, I would be well within my rights to presume that they had everything that they needed to do. So that would be a concern of mine. I mean, I can tell you from on the few trucks that we've had, because this again is not a big problem, but it does happen from time to time. If it's at an event at an establishment, I contact the establishment as well as the operator of the food truck.
That's smart.
So that would
In that case, it should be on the establishment to figure that out ahead of time, I would think.
Well, they certainly shouldn't invite them back for
Right.
the second time, knowing that they're not permitted. I mean, in that case, they would be fined. It would just be challenging then, like, because if you're in charge of that, like, how do you police it? How do you make sure that they're not coming back? It seems like it could be a full-time job in the summer.
Yeah. Well, and this would be my only, and again, going back to that the fee structure is supposed to cover, operational costs. So if we went with no fine the first offense, and we're going to fine on the second, then if somebody does it once, I'm going to have to send a correction order, certified mail, to the operator, and I'm going to have to track that so that if they do come back, I know that that's a second offense and now finable. Not a heavy lift, but as opposed to just acting on a violation the first time.
Well, and I do think that this, if people know that this, the first time you don't have to, you almost can get away with it.
Right.
That it's almost incentivizing people.
Yeah.
All right, I might not get a permit because I'm just going to see if it's successful, and then I have to go do it again later on. Then I would probably, at that point, then I'll go get my permit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
And I mean,
almost
if
incentivizing people not to get a permit the first time.
That's weaselly.
Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
if I am contacted after hours that there's a food truck currently operating down unpermitted, I will go shut them down. But a lot of times I find out about it after the fact.
That's right.
I had to spend an inordinate amount of time on social media looking for events in Abington just to make sure that
Everyone's covered. Yeah.
And then I can say from experience, like I reached out to a food truck that I thought was not permitted because they were doing business under a different name, and the owner was very appreciative of the fact that I was chasing people down because he's paying $125 a year to do the right thing. And
Right, they should as well.
Right.
So perhaps we change it a little. I just think to have double the fee for a first offense seems like a lot. My family loves the food trucks. I want to encourage them to keep coming to Abington, and I want to have good relationships with the food trucks. I want them to do what's proper, but maybe first offense is a smaller fine. Second offense is a more heavy-duty one.
Yeah,
You think that's maybe better than...
that seems fair.
Well, there's a motion currently on the table, so if you'd like to amend...
Maybe I'll retract that one.
If you could withdraw that motion, and then we can make a new
Start
motion.
again.
Yeah,
Do
we
you want to
start
chat
over.
about it a little bit more, or do we like that plan better than the first one? I like the idea of being lenient the first time, but to Kevin's point, you're right. I don't want to make it easy for people who aren't doing the right thing to get away
Right.
with it.
Yeah.
I mean, because topmost priority is making sure that they're clean, reputable food trucks that are coming and providing the residents of Abington.
Yeah, I like the idea of smaller the first time and then heavier
Yeah.
second.
Yeah,
Okay.
I personally don't want to be known as the community that could just let you get away with it
Right.
the first time.
Yeah.
Also, so I
point.
do believe we need to do something about it, especially since it's been happening repeatedly. Whether it's a big problem or not, it's happening.
my guess would be, again, so Weymouth and Hanover are the only ones that have it listed on their site. They're
The
doing
fine.
double. My presumption would be, if I'm a food truck operator and I can't be bothered to get a permit, and it's $50 for a one-time event, and the town's gonna fine me $50, maybe I won't have to pay $50, maybe I will.
Right.
It's the full fee, $125, I'm not gonna pull that again.
Right.
I mean, again, I'm not about being heavy-handed, but
Yeah.
that, if I had to guess at the rationale of the other towns for doing a double permit fee, if it's at least more than the one time, that might be an incentive not to try to get away with something.
And the fine shouldn't count toward the.
Towards permitting.
You know what, I think, why don't we do this? Why don't we make it a $75 fine, that's kind of in the middle? And what that does is, that's the cost of a seasonal permit, so if the person, would look at the fee schedule, they'd be like, well, I might as well just get the seasonal permit, because if I get fined, it's gonna be that
Yep.
amount anyways,
That's the number I was thinking.
Yep.
you know?
On the same page.
How many times have we had offenses so far?
This year, maybe 3 or 4.
Mm.
So again, it's not a huge problem.
Right.
but
All
it's-
separate trucks or the same
Separate.
ones?
Yeah, I mean, I don't currently have a fine that I can do, but I can deny them a permit. And if somebody was a multiple, I just wouldn't let them do business in Abington.
Right.
But we haven't had that. I think most of them are just trying to fly in under the radar, and if they get away with it, they're good. If they know they're going to be here, they're probably doing the right thing and getting permitted.
So the fine and fees will all be available on the website. They'll be able
Yeah.
to see that.
Yeah. And we also would put it on the application, so that you see, hopefully if you printed the application, you intend on filling it out, but it's good to have it on there as well.
Yeah, this is something we could add to the fee schedule as not necessarily like an item at the bottom to.
Yeah.
An FYI.
If it's going to incentivize them for not,
Getting fined.
not
Yeah.
getting fined, they should know what the fine is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I would even put it at the top instead of the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, the fee schedule is a number of different things, so
Right.
Yeah, we could just put it right in the
It's
food
everything that
section.
we do.
all
Or
of these.
right under the mobile truck section.
Yep. Okay.
So how do I retract my earlier motion then? I'd like to cancel my earlier motion, and I would like to present a new motion for a smaller fine. Is everybody in agreement that 75 seems appropriate for the initial offense? Okay,
Right.
so then I'd like to proceed with $75 as an initial fine for first time offense, and then a heavier duty fine for a second offense, maybe the full
125.
full
125.
125 for the second one.
So I have a motion from Katie to impose a fine for operating a mobile food establishment without a permit of $75 for the first offense and $125 for the second offense.
Second
Do I have
that.
a second? I have a second from Lisa. Do I have any further discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Motion passes. Okay. Do we have any further discussion on this item? No, hearing none. Move on to the next agenda item, which is approving the minutes of May 9th, 2022. Obviously, the only people that can vote to approve are the members that were there. Do I have any discussion or any action?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion approved from Kevin, a second from Katie. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You guys abstain, and the motion passes. All right. So the last agenda item on here is correspondence. This is something new we're going to be adding to the agenda moving forward. Really, it's an opportunity for us. We frequently will get emails through the town website on particular things, and if a particular issue comes up, sometimes those things do need to be communicated to the health department. They're not easily answered, bigger issues. So this is an opportunity that for us to communicate that to Chris here, or vice versa, if there's something that is a particular issue that keeps coming back up for Chris that he feels needs to be brought to our attention, he will do so. With that being said, if anybody has any correspondence they would like to discuss now, I don't know if the health department does.
Yeah. I'm trying not to make any more work for myself. So I just wanted to mention, and this is more for the public. Occasionally, trash barrels are missed on pickup, or a barrel especially recycling. It happens more with recycling. When the automatic arm on the truck empties it, it doesn't empty all the way. So sometimes people call Boston Carting. Boston Carting is a big company that services a lot of towns, and if you call them, they're not going to be able to help you. They're going to direct you to the health department. So if for some reason your trash is missed or not completely emptied, I ask that you call the health department. And one of the most important things is to leave the toter out on the corner. We have 2 excellent drivers. Mike and Dave are our trash and recycling guy. They're fantastic guys. I have them on speed dial on my phone. I will text them as soon as somebody says their barrel was missed, and they will go back out. But we've had numerous occasions over the past couple of weeks where people call and complain to me that something wasn't picked up, and they bring their tote in. And I am not sending our drivers out twice, or that would be 3 times for the same barrel. So I just ask people, if there's a problem, if your trash is not fully emptied or emptied, leave it on the curb, and let us know, and we will do our best to address it.
Thank you. Anything further in correspondence? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn from Kevin, do I have a second?
Second.
From Katie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We are adjourned.